be here.
Oh, absolutely gorgeous to have you. And Mark, Abby Wynn and Mark Attwood. Lovely, Mark. How are you, Mark? We are always free. Love that sign in the back there.
Hello, Sonia. How are you?
Well, it's great to have you both with us. They are here. My dog, much dog-eared, already much thumbed. Look at the state of it already. I don't think I've had it for more than a week, and I'm already like, oh. Right. So this is Weapons of Mass Protection. Abby, you've written so many books. I mean, I like huge volume of books, right? And Mark, you've also obviously written books. One of them I never get tired of saying how it is one of my favorite visual books, and in terms of the poetry and in terms of like the protest messaging in it. Absolutely love it. God Wins, absolutely love it. And this is your new book that you've written together. And honestly, I think that this is a book whose time has come. I think that is where we are at. I think we are in a place now where people who would normally have seen the whole idea of spiritual warfare as a bit woohoo, right? And I think those times are changing. So let's talk about this, right? So obviously, Mark, you are the host of the Mark Attwood Show, which you talk about in here, and you talk about how that came to be. I didn't realize it was only since 2020, but that was a calling in its own right. And Abby, of course, you're a shamanic psychotherapist. You are the co-author of this book, and you are a multiple author in your own right. And I was listening to what Richard Vobes had to say, and actually, Richard, you stole one of my lines, because he quite accurately described this book as almost like a conversation between the two of you. And I felt at times when I was reading it that I had been brought into a very kind of intimate conversation. So, Mark, I want to start with you, because one of the things that you say very early on in the book is you talk about first seeing a demon. I think you said you were the age of 3, right? Talk us through that.
Well, it was in the 3-day week back in '73 when Edward Heath was getting us in the back door of the EU via the common market, but nobody realized what he was up to, really. And
right. Compromised.
But I didn't know that. I was a little boy, and I was living in this house, and every night these creatures would come and talk to me, and it was like I was having a conversation, and it went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they were basically, and look, it's a memory that I blocked for quite a long time, but when it came back, it was like, what were they talking about? And they were basically trying to recruit me. And there was one particular night where they were saying, they were buttering me up, and looking back, obviously I didn't understand this as a child, but looking back on it, it makes sense to me, because of all my life experiences and all the people I've met, that the dark forces, for want of a better term, know who you are before you get here, and they also know what you're going to do, and they try to nullify you in some way, or try to recruit you, or try to knock you off your path, and ultimately try to get you to take your own life. And this was happening to me as soon as I got here. I mean, in my life, there was an abortion attempt on me when I was in my mother's womb as well. So
wow.
And look at all the healings that I've done with so many people over the years, under hypnosis and using things like the body code and shamanic healing, and I've done everything. Ayahuasca, peyote, all of these ceremonies have all pointed to the same thing for me personally. And this is a very personal journey until I started the podcast. And then I just got, it's like Richard, the interview I did with Richard, he said that at the end that he feels compelled to keep producing stuff and to keep asking these questions.
Right.
And that's exactly how I feel.
Yes.
It's a compulsion, because we're up against tyranny. Not in the 3D, it's tyranny, but in the multidimensional sense, it's good versus evil.
It is good versus evil. And it really is that simple, isn't it? We are dealing with multiple dark forces around us, especially when our aim is to do good. And by the way, I tend to, for me, I talk about how what I do is more of a calling than a career, but it's exactly that same thing, isn't it, that you're talking about?
And you can see I was listening to you before I came on, and every time I hear you speak, I'm like, go on, Sonia, because you're just giving it all the time. As George Galloway said to Saddam Hussein, the indefatigability of it is amazing. And you're a proper journalist, and you
Thank you.
You always speak from the heart.
I do.
And you never give up. And
No,
congratulations on the court stuff recently, by the way.
thank you. Thank you. All appreciated, obviously ongoing, and it's not something I can talk about, but lots of things to keep moving forward on
You
that.
will
So
win.
thank you. Well, we have the trial later, but again, I can't talk about that.
No.
So let me refer to Abby. Abby, so we're in no doubt that demons are real, right?
Mm.
So who are the good boys? Who are the good guys? Who are the good girls?
Well, it's a mixed bag, really. I think we're the good guys, first of all, and we have to be good with ourselves in order to know what to say no, to know what is appropriate, to have good, strong boundaries. Because there's plenty of stories, and this is what I love about Mark. We go into the dark corners in this
Right,
book. We don't hold
right,
anything back. And there's a whole piece in the book about the New Age and about angels and false prophets and how people think they're talking to amazing beings of light, but they're not. You know, Mark has introduced this phrase to me, which I've been using a lot recently, which is called a limited hangout, where most of what you're getting in this area or this field is true, but there's a little bit that's not true. But the little bit that isn't true is the bit that gets you in the stomach. And so who are the good guys? You have to start with you. You really, really do. And
ooh,
just say, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm going to sort this out. I don't want this. And once that happens, it's like something turns, something changes, and it has a ripple effect all around you. And they can come and get you twice as hard just to talk you out of it. You can be really tested at that point. But I think the time has come. I mean, I was looking for my angels yesterday because I realized, I've worked in this field for years. I wrote this book with Mark, and I realized last night, oh my gosh, I'm actually being attacked all week, and I didn't even know.
Hmm.
Because they get you in your weak spots. Now, the way I was being attacked this week was the slow, the frog in the cooker slowly
yes,
raising the heat
yes.
very slowly, so slowly that I didn't even realize it until I was just so agitated and so angry and wanting to punch something. And I said, hang on, this isn't me. So I started with an energy clearing and I cleared everything, and then suddenly something lifted. So you have to be aware. So even, Mark's mentioning court. If you go into court bright and shiny and big and strong and powerful in who you are, then that's the good guys. That's the light that you bring into everything. And that's what I want to teach people how to do. That's my passion. That's what I
Right,
never get
right.
tired of doing.
And it's interesting because Mark is talking about how I basically show up as me, no holds barred. But Mark, do you apply that to yourself? Because I think you're incredibly courageous. You are prepared to say things, even if people think you're absolutely crazy. And that in its own right is hugely courageous. What does it take to do that for you?
Not having a fear of death, really. I mean, I've nearly died multiple times in my life in various bizarre circumstances. But when COVID hit, I was very much, I've been researching like you have for years and years and years. My wake up started when Prince Philip shook my hand at St. James's Palace and failed to recognize my uniform. And he was the boss of the RAF. And I couldn't understand it.
Wow.
That was in 1988, I think, 1980.
Oh, a real world wake up call. Very interesting. So just go back there because that's very interesting. What did that say to you?
Well, I was I used to be in the Air Cadets as a teenager in Northampton. I used to rush home on a Thursday night after parade to watch Question Time because I was deeply interested in
Wow.
politics.
Wow.
And I'd get there and everybody else would be in bed and I'd sit and watch earnestly watching Robin Day talking to a load of other paedophiles, and I'd be, oh, I didn't know that then, and I'd be like, at the end of it, thank you for watching the BBC, and then they play God Save the Queen, and I was so brainwashed and patriotic. I still am patriotic, but not in this way. I would stand to attention and salute the TV when there was nobody else in the room.
Oh, bless you.
So I was a very, very keen.
Wow, you've
And I,
had a huge change then to
oh
come from
yeah,
that sort of background. That's
yeah,
massive. That's seismic. That's
well
like you're a
yeah,
different person.
well yeah, and then my own personal circumstances were that my father had a brain hemorrhage at the age of 37, and at the age of 17, I was asked if they could turn the life support machine off because my mother was out of it and they couldn't get any sense out of her. And I don't think it's even legal now. And I spent
He frozen, and I spent. I think he's frozen on us, Abby. It'll come back shortly. What I
And,
also
I'd already been in the Air Force for a bit then, and I already knew that there were issues
right,
around the whole military
right,
service thing. Even though
right.
I've got nothing against anybody that serves in the military, they're all great people, but most of them have been dupes. And I just felt like, well, who am I actually working for? That's what I felt at the time.
This is amazing. Like your awareness from a very young age is quite extraordinary, I think. And I think that it's really profound you saying there was like an abortion attempt on you when you were still in the womb, because it's almost miraculous that people are born. The amount of things that can stop people being born in the first place, then that alone should tell us that we are miracles. But here's one of the things that I like about it. I actually think what sets this apart is this is almost a how to reach places that you might not have been able to before. You go about it in a very methodical and forensic way. The breakdown of the chapters, for example, as I say, it starts off with like, our demons real? Then you talk about the good guys. You go through, you talk about ascension, about knowing when you are being attacked, and identifying your own weaknesses. To me, this is a guide. But there was one, I mean, there's many, but this one, I just wanted to, this is just at the start, right at the start on page 8. No, let me find last, I can't find it. But it was one line that I thought was really profound. I mean, there's many lines that I think are profound, but this one I think sums up the whole book in many respects, because the whole book is about empowerment, right, Abby? It's about not only protecting yourself from spiritual attacks, but it's about empowering you as an individual, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Very, very important. Very
And so
important.
that line I'm talking about is, when you know yourself, people can't control you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Well, I'm thinking about me because Mark talks a lot about his childhood, and you're talking about the big switch from his pure belief, 100% in what he was told was real, coming back into himself. And I was reminded of me, who I was kind of an outcast living in Ireland. I'm Jewish. My family was Orthodox. So we were never in any sect or cult. And I was always on the outskirts, always on the outside, kind of looking and asking, well, who am I? And where do I fit in?
Mm.
And even when I'm with my family and they're telling me, oh, you have to do this and this and this with the religion, I'm going, no, well, that doesn't feel right to me. I'm not going to do it. And what was really interesting was my family moved away from orthodoxy to just show up at the services when you're supposed to show up at the services. And I'm like, okay, we're an outcast for this, but we're not even embracing this. So what do we embrace? So I started to get in touch with my inner self, my inner connection with, well, what does this feel like?
Right.
What does this seem like to me? And and an advantage, I suppose, was that I was never beaten down when the magic showed up as a child. So I remember myself sitting in a car regularly behind people waiting at the traffic lights to go, and all the indicators flashing to turn left or to turn right, as I'm sure everybody's been in this situation. But as a child, I was going, gosh, they're really annoying because they're all indicating at a different, what if I could just, by the power of my will, make all the indicators go at the same time, like metronomes,
Ooh,
all
ooh,
synchronizing together.
ooh.
And I tried it once, and it worked. And I'm like, that no, that didn't really happen. I started realizing that we have huge power of will. And so I used to just do it and not put a huge force behind it. And it would start to do that as well. And it made me really interested in the nature of things and the nature of our reality and who we are and what we are. And I think as a collective, we're all there right now at, trying to figure out, well, hang on, are we what we think we are? Are we who we thought we were? And what is
Right,
history? And what is this realm
right.
that we're living in? And, talking again about the good guys and the bad guys and the demons and the angels. I'm even questioning now after all this time, well, were they here the whole time? Is it, multidimensional fabric that we're just being able to pierce through? There's another line that we use in the book, and a line that Mark and I use quite regularly, which is, when people say the veils are thinning, the veils are thinning.
Yes.
We've been saying, well, the veil is inside you.
Stop. That's freaky. That's so freaky. That, I mean, hairs stand on end moment, because that is quite weird. And so the thing is I think there's a lot of truth in that. I come from a very spiritual background. My mum was a medium. I didn't grow up in a conventional way, but for the most part, our society is absolutely dumbed down just to the basic physicality of everything, which is why so many people have constant plastic surgery because they want their outward appearance to be looking a certain way, but they're not taking account of their spirituality. Now, Mark, and I know you'll be able to expand on this. Has there been an absolute deliberate movement to separate us from source?
No, 100%. 100%. I mean, you've only got to look at the fluoride in the water. That's the simplest, most obvious place, right? This lie about fluoride being good for your teeth is just a massive lie. And fluoride is a neurotoxin, but it also calcifies your pineal gland. Your pineal gland, the second episode I did in my podcast was about this being a war on the pineal gland because it's a war on consciousness. And consciousness massively depends upon you having a fully functioning pineal gland, which is really your connection to God. That's where all the DMT is secreted, and that's where you have visions, and that's where you become psychic, which is why I interviewed a guy that took adrenochrome the other week, and he said when he took it, he could see the future. So, you know, this stuff is, and that's made of blood from the pineal gland. So, yeah, 100% they're trying to separate us from source because the whole thing, we're frequency, right? So every single thing from the toxins in the carpets and the rubber on your shoes that's disconnecting you from the earth, the fact that Bill Gates wants to block out the sun, all of just everything about our food, our water, everything is poisoned. Not and on a 3D level, it just sounds like, oh, they're just trying to poison us. But no, it's more than that. It's disrupting our frequency because once the frequency is disrupted, you have full control. And this is an open air prison, and we have this illusion of freedom. But they don't need to put us behind bars because we put ourselves behind our own bars.
Taken care of already, isn't it? It's all, yeah. I mean, we're literally doing it to ourselves. But as I say, this to me is a sort of go-to book which will actually guide you to reaching that state of oneness, really. And I think what's important is you look at the whole, because you're also not just looking at what perhaps is being done to us, but you're also looking at what we're doing to ourselves. What are we putting on our bodies? What are we spending our time, our energy with? Abby, why is it so vitally important that we are much more careful about what we're doing to ourselves? Because we're so lax, aren't we, for the most part?
Well, I think with the bombardment that we are receiving of all of the information and all of the distractions, we don't really pay attention to detail anymore. And it's the devil's in the details, isn't that a saying? So I've stopped using chemical shampoo. I hardly need to use any soap. I stood in the supermarket there and looked and saw everything has chemicals in it. Every single thing you do has a consequence. Every single thing you choose has a consequence. I mean, when you and Mark there talking about where frequency coming in to disrupt us, even the music that we listen to, the lyrics is all shifted to the frequency that hurts us. Kitchen appliances like your fridge are humming away in the background all the time at the low level of frequency that damages, and people are beginning to realize this and change what you're listening to, and something lifts. Go outside and something lifts. That's why it feels better outside. And so it's amazing, even what how you wake up, what you have around your bed. In my book How to Be Well, which I wrote in 2014, published by Hay House, even talking about what do you see, what's the first thing you see in the morning when you wake up. And do you have these sentimental, heavy photographs of people that that you're missing, that are gone, or are you having a big expanse of beauty when you wake up? Are you offering yourself beauty? Are you allowing yourself to receive beauty? Beauty is huge, and we're told, oh, we don't deserve beauty. I wrote a line for one of my diaries. I write a diary every year as well. So yeah, and one of the lines was. I opened the door and I found all these roses sitting there at the door, but because I hadn't opened the door, they're all rotting. And then I realized that I was the one who was giving them to myself and I wasn't receiving them.
Wow. What a profound realization. Some people are talking about distilled water in the comments. What's the importance of distilled water, Mark?
Water is key to all of this. I mean, in my house, I have a whole house filter That then goes through a thing called a grander device, which brings it to life. And in my tap, I have another filter which uses reverse osmosis and then adds hydrogen to it. So I tell my kids, look, don't buy those drinks in the shop. I have the best water in the world. And when I get that water, I then I put it into a vortex machine just to give it extra life, and then always drink it with salt. Because when you drink water without minerals in, you are dehydrated. When you drink bottled water from the shop, you are drinking dead water, even if it's clean. And when you're drinking water out of the tap, you're screwed. And even worse than that, people, we opened a healing center a year ago in the west of Ireland, and the people that come in, it's unbelievable the levels of toxicity inside people. That's the thing that's killing them. And it
Wow.
starts with the water. That's the first thing
Right.
we talk to them
Yeah,
about
absolutely
when they come
vital.
in. Yeah, and people don't know
Absolutely
what a live
vital.
water is, and it's so important. So we have
Yes.
distilled water. You bring it to life, but it's still dead. Well, it's alive, but it's not got any minerals in. So you must never drink water without electrolytes. And you can do that cheaply with Celtic sea salt, or you can go and get something like 40,000 volts, which is brilliant electrolyte to add to stuff. And that charges your cells, because all of our illness and and I believe this is all part of the demonic attacks as well. I worked, like, I'm claircognizant, and I got this message a few years ago that every cell inside it has detritus of some kind coming from wherever, deliberately most of the time.
Wow.
That's the stuff that they can latch onto. Once you start taking that stuff out, because all dis-ease is caused by, you're not sick, you're toxic, and that's all
Yes.
caused by toxicity.
Right.
And it
Right.
starts with the water. But even yesterday, a guy came in, very awake, lovely fella, came 100 miles to come to this place. We had a coffee with him. And I said, "What are you drinking?" And he said, "Oh, I'm doing well with the water, blah, blah, blah." And then I said, "But what are you bathing in?" He went, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, what do you have a shower in?" I said, "That's tap water." Your skin is your biggest organ. You can't just drink clean water and then go and sit in a bath full of fluoride and chlorine and
Oh,
all the
it's
other crap
so
they put into it.
hard though.
I know
It's
it
so
is, but it's got.
hard. This is so difficult, even for somebody like me who's fairly clued up. It's so difficult to make those kind of leaps to those extremes. But I hear you. It's important to at least know, because then you can start to make some steps towards it as well. Choose Love says, "I'm enjoying this conversation." Well, good to hear it.
Well, people say to me it's so expensive to get the filters, but then they go to the shop and they buy 3, 4 pound bottles of mineral water. I'm
I
like,
hear
just
you.
just add it up.
I hear you. I hear you. And that's the thing, is that, and again, that's why I think this is important, because there's actually a lot of practicality about this. This isn't just woo woo. And I come from a background where we never say woo woo about spiritual issues, but I know that a lot of people do. A lot of people are like, oh, it's like chocolate. It just kind of melts on your tongue and that's it, over and done with. But actually, no, spirituality is all encompassing. It is with you from, throughout your entire life. And that's why I feel no great fear about anything, because I'm absolutely aware of a much higher order going on. And I feel very much in tune with my source and what I'm here for. And it could end at any moment. But so what? I've done everything I humanly could up to this point. And I just wonder, Mark and Abby, whether you both feel, kind of accomplished. There must have been a sense of relief getting this out, Abby. There must have been, because there will be, well, because of all the stuff that it contains. And this is coming from light. So that there must have been a release for you to have it out.
Well, actually, no.
Oh,
Because I felt there's more to do, and that people who read the book could be filled with a sense of overwhelm. There's too much. Where do I start? What do I do? How do I change? It's like, here's all of these things, and people who might never have thought of this before. It's really difficult. So I hopped off there to pick this up. So I made this, which
wow.
is you can see it's a proof. So it will be available in print format, I'd say in a couple of days' time on Amazon. I made a workbook. And the workbook is the work of the book, but it's also got lots of things, questions,
Brilliant
ideas.
idea.
And I've
Such a great
actually,
idea.
I've put in QR codes, because I've been doing this work for 14 years, and I've got lots of free healings, meditations on SoundCloud. And I just want people to go out there and be empowered. Take your power back is where you have to start. Because if you're not powerful and then you're overwhelmed, you leak out all of your energy. So if you start by taking your power back, then you can decide, well, what's the most important thing for me to do? And like Mark says, water is important. And I've discovered through drinking water that's structured and healthy, it actually tastes amazing. And then you lose your cravings for all the other fancy drinks that you thought you needed because the water is filling and satisfying your body and all the things that you need. So that was important for me, but for someone else, it could be something else like stopping having fights with their parents. That could be much more important than changing their water. And so by taking your power back, and getting a few tips and pointers from me and doing cord cutting, which is also in the book. My daughter made some of these illustrations to show people what cords might look like, because again, we don't necessarily know.
Oh,
So by cutting these cords, you free yourself up and your power comes back, and you can then see what's going on, and then you become aware of what you're choosing, and you can say, okay, I'm choosing not to live like this anymore. And then you get your inner knowing and yourself, and taking it very slowly, one step at a time. So for me, it feels like, okay, this is the book that leads on to all the other books I've written, so I'm stepping up now to say, right, people who want to do the work, I'm here. So it's not necessarily a release, but it's like the greyhounds in the box waiting for the thing to come up for the race to start. It feels like the lid is off and we're running now, and here we are, and let's go and let's do this thing. Let's get our power back. Let's be stronger, and let's do it all, because everyone's an individual. So it is going to be different for
yes,
everybody.
yes,
It's really important.
yes. Mark, finish us off. Take us into something that if somebody was listening to this for the first time, because obviously towards the end of the book, you actually talk about daily workout, right? The importance of a daily workout in terms of your spiritual fitness. Tell us some simple things that people could do today if this is a new arena for them.
Well, over my time, I've met people, the teachers appear when the student's ready. And I talk about one particular guy that came into my life 15 years ago called Jim. And Jim came to me on the phone, and he asked me to visualize something, which involves standing in the window of a stately home, overlooking the big circle where the cars come in. And he asked me to imagine post office vans coming in, picking up gold, and then going off. And when I was on the phone, and I'd never met him, while I was on the phone, I was visualizing this, but I had thousands of post office vans coming in and then speeding off stuff with gold. And he said on the phone, "Mark, slow down." And I was like, how does he know that I've got these coming in so quick? And so I ended up meeting him, and he started teaching me loads of protection techniques. And through that time, just to quickly answer your question, my personal routine is most days. Sometimes I forget if I'm busy, but and you don't have such a good day if you do forget. I say 7 thank yous. I think of 7 things that I'm really grateful for, people usually, and I say those out loud. I call upon the highest version of Archangel Michael and my spirit guides, all of which I can feel, and I connect with them, and I ask them for protection, the full armor of God. And then I ask God to give me the guidance to be the best I can possibly be today. Doesn't always work, but I ask for it. And practically, I make sure I drink some structured water with a bit of lemon juice and salt, and put my bare feet on the grass. That's a phenomenal way to start your day, and it's simple, and it's most
Fabulous.
of it's free.
Love it.
Oh, and
Absolutely
also, I
love it.
was just going to say, we wanted to make sure that this was available for everybody. So there is a way of getting it for free. The ebook is free on a web link that I can give you,
Yes,
where people,
please.
it's bit.ly forward
Can you
slash.
send it to me and I'll put it in the
Yeah.
description where
Oh,
we have
I
a
thought, yes,
description?
I'll do that. Well,
That would be
actually, yes.
fantastic.
Great. Yeah, I'll do
Wonderful.
that afterwards. But
Appreciate you
yeah.
both very much. Everybody, you just hear that. You can get a free copy of this book, and that really is, quite incredible. Thank you both so much for joining us this morning, everybody. Mark Attwood, Abby Wynn, and their wonderful book, Weapons of Mass Protection.